Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Welcome to Vedic Heritage. Many a time youngsters say, I believe in God, but I don't feel the need to pray. Why should I? Have you ever questioned why do some people pray while others don't? What does prayer mean as a Hindu? Is it chanting or fasting or visiting temples or meditating? What is the benefit? To answer that, we first need to understand the concepts of devotion, prayer, and worship. Let us start with devotion. Dictionary defines devotion as a feeling of strong love or loyalty. The act of identifying with and submitting to a supreme force, whatever name you may call it by, is bhakti. There is divinity in every one of us, and we feel it and express it many times. We are just not always aware of it. But when we truly admire nature, or laugh with a baby, or feel content for the briefest of moments, it is divinity that we feel. Being in touch with the divine in all its myriad forms is bhakti by accident. But when bhakti becomes a voluntary act of communication between oneself and the divine, it can be of two forms, say our ancient sages. They classified bhakti as Sakamya Bhakti and Nishkamya Bhakti. To understand this, let us now come to prayer. Dictionary defines prayer as asking or begging for something, communication with God, or a religious practice. By nature, we all hope or wish or want something all the time. I hope my team wins. I wish I had good looks. I really want a break. We are consciously putting out our desires into the world, hoping for it to come true. Faith in oneself is crucial in achieving our goals. I believe that I can. I will succeed are words of faith. While we can achieve many of our desires with self-faith, many a time that is not enough. Factors beyond our control make us feel helpless. It is in these times that we look towards an all-powerful existence which can help us. This need for support cannot be denied or criticized. This call for help is called prayer. And for those who lack faith in themselves, life is easier lived with faith in the Almighty. But even for those who are self-reliant, prayer proves a useful tool. The religious system of Hindus therefore has facilitated this type of appeal to the divine through temples, rituals, and various practices like mantras, japas, and yajnas. The ancient rishis considered this communication with the divine as the first step of bhakti. This type of bhakti, the prayer, is called Sakamya Bhakti. It is devotion shown in order to fulfill desires. Depending on our innate tendencies, each of us prays for different things. We are all made of three gunas or qualities, tamas, rajas, and sattva in varying percentages. Let us see how our gunas influence the way we pray. The quality of tamas inspires indolent, ignorant, selfish, and antisocial behaviors. When people pray for a rival's destruction or a neighbor's downfall, or for wrong deeds like a successful robbery, they are all tamas inspired. While the prayers may be answered, it comes at the cost of one's own well-being. Succeeding as a criminal will only make one go further into darkness or tamas. This is tamas inspired prayer. The quality of rajas inspires desires, restlessness, attachment. Most of us desire to do well in life. Students pray for studies, adults for better salary or promotions, possessions, etc. Mothers pray for the health and well-being of the family, elders for a peaceful death or better afterlife. All these prayers, while apparently harmless and common, arise out of our troubled mind. Driven by desire, fear, anger, sorrow, and other emotions, these prayers, when answered, help us in the present, but in the long run, they lead us into more desires and attachments. Every time we get something, we want even more. This is Rajas inspired prayer. The quality of Sattva inspires benevolence, charity, brotherhood, wisdom. There are those among us who pray for nobler causes. Seekers may pray for true wisdom, devotees for liberation, ashrams and temples for the well-being of society and the mitigation of evils, and so on. Inspired by pure, benevolent and mostly unselfish intentions, these are Sattva-inspired prayers. Thus, Sattvic prayers aim for spiritual upliftment and social welfare. Rajasic prayers are for the benefit of individual and his immediate family. But Tamasic prayers will be for the apparent benefit of the individual at the cost of others or the society. Just as we can evolve from Tamasic to Rajasic and then on to Sattvic temperament, when we become aware, we can evolve in Sakamya Bhakti too, from Tamasic to Rajasic and from Rajasic to Sattvic prayers. Whether Tamas, Rajas or Sattva inspired, all these prayers are still Sakamya Bhakti, praying, asking for something in return. So, at every stage in life, our desires propel us and Sakamya Bhakti only helps us navigate the day-to-day troubles in life. All is well till the day our prayers are not answered. If our bhakti was only limited to the fulfillment of desires, then that bhakti leads to disillusionment because, as per the laws of karma, although we can mold our destiny, we cannot totally rewrite it. We do hear people who say, "I have lost faith, God failed me." Sadly, Sakamya Bhakti is the only way most of us invoke God today. And while the scriptures provide for this type of bhakti, one can aim for a higher level of bhakti, the Nishkamya Bhakti. What is Nishkamya Bhakti? Let us look at worship to understand that. Worship is defined as the feeling or expression of reverence, glorification, thanksgiving and adoration. When worship is directed towards the Supreme Divinity in any form, it becomes an expression of bhakti. When we talk of the glory of God, or when we are grateful for the grace or the omnipresence of God, when we adore, expressing love and awe, we worship divinity without any ulterior motive. While devotion or bhakti is faith and attachment to God, worship is the act of bonding. This bonding of love with no hidden agenda is Nishkamya Bhakti or desireless devotion. This is considered a more evolved mode of communication or communing with the divine. Saints like Meera and Andal were prime examples of Nishkamya worship as they just revelled in divinity with no other worldly desires. Depending on the type of individuals we approach the Almighty through Sakamya or Nishkamya Bhakti. While both come naturally, Sakamya can lead to Nishkamya Bhakti, but Nishkamya does not lead back to Sakamya. Therefore, it is an upward evolution of Bhakti. Let us understand this through an example. Imagine you are a child, busy with your daily activities. You don't need to look back at your mother to know that she is there. She feeds you when you are hungry, or soothes you when you hurt, or just holds you in her embrace and rejuvenates you. You enjoy your play and your explorations. You are safe and free in her environment. She takes care of all your needs and wants. All you need to do is be near her. This is Nishkamya Bhakti. Developing an attachment to the divine, being in its presence and reveling in it. Trusting that we are taken care of always, and understanding that our development is unhindered when in the embrace of the divine. This unconditional surrender happens when we realize that we need not ask for anything more when secure in this union. Now imagine you are the child separated from her mother, the Supreme Divine. You manage your life and your hurts and your anger, but with a struggle. You reach out only when you are helpless, but in the short time that you reach out, all you do is ask for help. This is Sakamya Bhakti. unaware of that which separates us from the divine. We believe that we have to manage alone, and only when weak or desperate we ask for help. At every point we think, please grant me this, I won't ask for anything more. Yet, soon enough we need more. We have forgotten the security, love and contentment of divine presence. Until one day, we realize that there is no need to feel alone. We are in divinity's protective embrace, free to act and explore. When we can surrender to this union, secure in the thought that we will always be picked up, no matter how many times we fall, the feeling of Nishkamya Bhakti awakens. Then there is no going back. But how do we achieve Nishkamya Bhakti? Recognizing our tendencies is the first step towards growth. As humans, we are driven by our desires, likes and dislikes. Truly speaking, it's extremely difficult to give up our desires and follow Nishkamya Bhakti. Desire cannot be given up. It has to become irrelevant. Like the dried petals of a mature flower, desires have to lose their value and wither away. And that may take many years or even lifetimes of correct practice. Meanwhile, with a mind load of desires, how do we proceed? So the ancient rishis have devised many ways for each of us to slowly ease into the higher level of devotion from our present levels of Sakamya Bhakti. There are small rituals and traditions woven into our daily life to slowly elevate our attitudes and personalities. Daiva Chintana is the concept of seeing divinity in everything at all times. We are told that everything is just a manifestation of supreme divinity, which we call God or Paramatma. While the same God dwells in all, godliness shines through the purer forms and is hidden in others. So we honor and worship the best ones among all creations as outer reflections of the inner God. We worship saints like Adi Shankara and Mahavira, avatars like Rama and Krishna among humans as godliness shines through them. Similarly, we worship rivers like Ganga and Kaveri, lakes like Manasarovar. We worship seas, mountains, sun, earth, banyan, tulsi. The list goes on. Many animals are made sacred as vehicles of various deities. What we basically do is to acknowledge, thank and honor all forms of creation as expressions of divinity. We understand our interdependent nature and learn to care for all. This is the beginning of true bhakti, seeing the Almighty all around us and in everything pure. We also link worship to every act of the day, the week, the month and the year. We chant shlokas when we wake up, bathe, eat or sleep. We start the day or work or a journey with worship. We marry, celebrate birthdays, even herald in seasons with worship. This builds in us the love of God in everything, everywhere and at all times. This builds the culture of Daiva Chintana, constant thought of the divine. Rijuvartana or righteous living is the second pillar of Sanatana Dharma, the Hindu way of life. Righteous living is about living life following the tenets of Dharma. Dharma, simply put, means to abide by truth, non-violence, respect for other beings and their belongings, control of senses, cleanliness of body, mind and intellect, forgiveness, as well as the pursuit of knowledge and reason. In a sense, if one follows the laws of nature, engages in spiritual inquiry, and is a productive being in the world, contributing to the welfare of all, then it is a righteous life. Therefore, Daiva Chintana combined with Rijuvartana slowly leads the way to Nishkamya Bhakti and eventually to moksha or revelation. So the next time your child asks, why do we chant or do puja, try this answer. God is everywhere within everything. Just as all this bounty is available to us for free, we are here to sustain all of them. Worship is our way of acknowledging and saying thanks. Spending a few minutes worshipping helps me connect with God inside me. It makes me happy and loving. Do you want to try? And for those who have questions on God, that is thought for another video. If you enjoyed this video, do like and share with others. Thank you for watching. Harihi Om.